one of the things that when I had this debate with Eni Aluko, who's a football commentator, black woman, and we had this big debate.
I saw some of that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, she was saying a lot of stuff that I didn't even have to, because there was so much coming at me. I didn't have time in the moment to think about. But she said, white men have dominated for hundreds of years. They've dominated. And I only later thought, yeah, but everyone in England at that point, she said in England, I said everyone in England was white, almost everyone. so the people who were being dominated were also white, and they were having a terrible time of it. And when you read like Jack London, The People of the Abyss, and he goes into London and East London, and you see the way and these were white people as well. So that doesn't mean that, okay, so racist. I mean, I agree with what you're saying.
Yes, but I mean, maybe she means white, well-off men.
Sure.
You can always make the argument to say there's a certain group of people who historically have benefited over and above the white working classes, black people, Indian people, whoever. There is definitely an argument to say white middle-class men have done well over the years. That's true. Well, who cares? I mean, like, I just sort of think, well, yes, and so, you've got your life, you've got to live it. That's for me what's important. And more importantly is the fact that are we talking about things now that are actually going to prevent children from white working class backgrounds, from black backgrounds, Indian backgrounds, whatever it is, from succeeding? Are we going to stop them from succeeding because we're constantly telling them that the establishment is against them, and that we're making them think that these white men are the devil? This is just insane. I mean, it's insane. And it's also the case that I certainly don't want white middle-class boys being, oppressed in some way, or being sidelined because somehow, recently I saw on Twitter, maybe yesterday, about somebody, who is it now? Oh no, I've forgotten now. It was one of the top firms. Oh, Disney. Disney, one of the top execs saying, well, we certainly can't hire white men. Like, what?
I saw that.
What do you mean you can't hire white men? I mean, this is just crazy. It's just, I don't understand how people can be so willing to be prejudiced when they say they are working against prejudice. I just don't get it. And so...
Is there a natural human impulse to be prejudiced, and the particular society you live in, there'll always be a loophole. There'll always be a way where you could. So back in the day, if you wanted to hate black people, you could. And you even in polite society, when there was slaves kept, you could just do that. In 1930s in Germany, you could just do whatever to Jewish people because it was allowed. And right now, you can say whatever you want about white. It's just an impulse in all human beings.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Maybe.
Oh, we're fucked then. Right, let's go. That's it.
But, I mean, gosh, it's just, maybe. I mean, it's a good point. Well, what we are group animals, right? So we tend to do what everybody else does around us, and we don't really think about it, which is why schools are so important. Because if it's the case, like our children who were there singing God Save the King stood up at the beginning, and then they sit down and they're all cheering for England, and they feel very much that they are part of their country. They take that on and take that through life then. And the thing that made me a bit sad about last night was I looked at that and thought, gosh, if every school were like ours, this would be happening everywhere. Like, if every school were like ours, just imagine how much less anger there would be, how much everyone could just get on with each other. And, friends of mine who get annoyed with me, they'll say things like, well, the Jews never let us forget about the Holocaust, so we shouldn't forget about the way they do X, Y, and Z's happened to us. And I said, well, you know what? I think some Jews don't care about the Holocaust. I think some do say you need to be thinking about it all the time. But the fact is that you're not doing it you're not forgiving whoever it is for their sake. You're forgiving them for your sake. So you don't have to carry this weight on your shoulders anymore, so that you can just live life.
Also, imagine blaming Germans now for what their ancestors did.
Well, I think that does happen.
It does, and it shouldn't, but it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
No, I lived in Germany for a few years, and I learned the language and felt very much a part of it. I know some people who were closer to it from generations before found that very difficult, which is a funny thing to think of. They couldn't go to Germany. Jewish the parents, uncles, aunts, they would find that very difficult because it's so close to home. But a few ancestors down the line, I mean, I don't have that same response.
Exactly.
And if I did, and I used that as an excuse every time I went for a job and didn't get it, which must be about 10,000 times in my life. That might actually not even be an exaggeration. organization, the amount of emails, most freelance journalists will understand this as well, that you send out and you don't hear back. If you send out 10, 20, 30 a day for years and years and years, you don't hear back from any of them.
Yeah.
And if I could have at any point said, it's because I've got a Jewish name, and just given up.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. So, and the point is that you just wouldn't, after 2 times, you'd give up. If that's all anyone ever tells you.
We wouldn't have this.
You know? And the thing is, it could be for any number of reasons. Because actually, on average, you have to send it out 25 times and then you'll hear back.
There's too many people involved.
But if you're convinced, that's exactly right. It is so, and the thing is, imagine the bitterness that you're carrying all the time. Every time you have an interaction, every time you go to the bank and to the doctors and to talk to your son's teacher, you're just thinking this because I'm black. You're just telling me this because I'm black. I mean, you remember the Ali G,
Is it because I is black?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I think the reality is 99% of people are not racist and are not anti-Semitic. That's my belief. Most people watching this don't care. They couldn't care less. But given everything you've said so far, it makes sense that you've had this very recent issue around Islam.
Yes.
And wouldn't want that at your school, the prayers and things. Tell us what happened.
Well, I mean, it's quite a lengthy story, but to make it short, we have more than, about 50% Muslims in our school. That means there's hundreds and hundreds of Muslims. For 9 years, nobody ever prayed. We said they could pray in the yard if they wanted to, but they never did. Then a couple of kids did pray, and then more prayed and more prayed and more, because people are group animals, and that's what happens. Nobody did, so nobody did. It's simple. And everyone just copies. That's what happened. It then became the case that it was fascinating. Kids became rude. This was during Ramadan. So there are some Muslims who fast, some Muslims who don't fast. The ones who were fasting and praying would then intimidate the ones who were not fasting and say, no, you have to put that food down. You're not allowed to eat. And it was horrible.
This is difficult as a teacher.
Horrible.
What the hell do you do?
In days, this is what happened. The whole environment changed in a matter of days. And then we started getting calls from people on the outside who could see the children outside praying, saying, why don't they have a prayer room? This is outrageous. This is Islamophobic, et cetera, et cetera. Then a petition was started by people on the outside. We got death threats. We got horrible racial abuse. I mean, horrible racial abuse. You can't imagine. I mean, really awful stuff.
Like anti-black.
Yeah, because one of the teachers who was involved in the situation was black, and they just attacked her. It was awful. Absolutely awful. Oh. And obviously, the governors and I had to move in such a way to protect the teacher, to protect the children who were being intimidated, to protect the whole school. There was a bomb threat at one point. The police had to come and check the whole school. I mean, it was absolutely hideous. And we then banned prayer. And then one of the mums of one of the girls said, right, I'm taking them to court. She was able to access legal aid, and this is for the tune of, we spent about 300,000 in the end. So I imagine they got something similar. I mean, they had top lawyers, representing them.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot of money that you're able to get
poor
to then
community.
take us to court. And you can imagine, right? How destructive that is too. So it was particularly nice yesterday with the England match to be able to restore that community again,
God, yeah.
But then over a year this takes to then get to court and so on. And you can imagine the time of mine it took and governors and so on. In any case, we finally then did win and the verdict went our way. And that is because the judge understood that our entire ethos would have been undermined by we would have had to have several prayer rooms. We couldn't have just had one. The children, all of our strict ethos would have gone. We have the children walking in silence in the corridors. That would have had to go. Our family lunch, where the children share lunch together, that would have had to go. So it's all very well saying, oh, no, but we want Michaela. We just want Michaela with a prayer room. Well, there's no such thing. You would have had a different school with a prayer room. In fact, you would have had more of a normal school. And in fact, every other school in the district is a normal school and has a prayer room. Or there are 2 Islamic schools that you can also go to. So the judge made the decision quite rightly. Look, there's lots of choice out there. You can go there if you like. But given that not only is it the case that Michaela's ethos is very special and they've made that clear, before families join, we make it clear there is no prayer room. So you can't sign up and say, we're happy with no prayer room. And then 2.5 years later, your child has been there, been very happy without a prayer room. But then suddenly you say, no, I'm going to take you to court for not having a prayer room, which is precisely what happened. So Yeah, I just think it was disingenuous. I mean, 2.5 years, you're fine. Then suddenly you're not. And it's the group animal point, you know? Suddenly this has been highlighted. Oh, wait a minute. Actually, now this is what I want. Even though when I signed up, I was happy with it as it was. So I'm pleased the judge saw sense on that. It is really important that our values and our ethos are protected just as much as any religious ethos would be protected. What upsets me is this idea that, oh, well, if you are of a particular religion, then we'll protect you because your rights matter then. But because you're a secular school with a very particular secular ethos, which will be undermined if you, for instance, have several prayer rooms, then we're going to ignore that because that's not important. You know, that's what upsets me because we should be allowed to have our ethos. I have spent 14 years of my life fighting for our school, setting it up, put everything into it. And for somebody to come along and go, you know what, you're now going to make it into a normal school because what's more important to us is that we have a prayer room. Well, to all these other people who are here, you know, one of our Muslim dads, he wrote to us saying, this is outrageous. I want to come and give assemblies to tell the children how ridiculous this court case is. He said, I want to explain to them that I grew up across the Middle East in various different Muslim countries. We never had prayer at school. So this idea that Muslims cannot exist without prayer at school is a nonsense. You know, all of my friends, none of us, all of us didn't have prayer. But here we are demanding this when the school has done such an incredible job with our children. How dare they treat you with such disrespect, you know?
You should get him in. Will he come in and do a talk?
Yeah, but I don't want to embarrass his child.
Oh, of course, yeah. What you described of people coming in to a school they've chosen, knowing it doesn't have a prayer room, then wanting to change it. That's what a lot of people are worried about. I mean, it's a microcosm, not just for Islam at the moment, but a lot of woke kind of communities. We see it in America. They sort of seem to have ruined a lot of San Francisco, for example. Suddenly they're all fleeing to Texas, which is because it's lovely there. And it's like, yes, it is lovely there. But once you move with your ideology there, it won't be so lovely anymore.
That's
perhaps.
it. That's exactly it. You know, what you just said about California, the same applies to teaching, you know. It occurred to me when I was reading about that, California, they're all leaving. Like, yeah, you made it, you broke it. And then now you've said, not my problem, I'm off.
Yeah.
And now you'll go somewhere else and you'll break that. What's fascinating with teachers, it's the same thing. Too many teachers, as far as I'm concerned, have a woke ideology. There are some that don't, but too often woke ideology really permeates our schools. Teachers are then in there, terrible behavior, too much workload, things are crazy, children are rude, etc. And they say, you know what, I'm not having this anymore. I'm going to go and live in Qatar. I'm going to go and live in Dubai and work for an international private school. Like, yeah, so you broke these schools with your woke ideology. Now you're going to Qatar where that woke ideology won't fly. But you'll keep that woke ideology to yourself and then you'll benefit from the fact that the absence of wokery means that the children behave and that they're polite to you and so on and so forth. That's
Cowards.